If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then the UK Property Market Stats Show, is for you. My name is Christopher Watkin, and each week I bring you this show with a different guest. This week it is Christian Stott. We'll come to Christian in a second. Why should you watch this show? Well, the British are obsessed with the property market. Whenever the Land Registry chucks some details out, it's front page news. Whenever the Halifax or Nationwide put stats out, again, front page news. But I don't know if you're aware, ladies and gentlemen, but the Land Registry are looking at sales that took place 8, 9, 10 months ago. The Halifax and Nationwide are looking at sales that took place 2 or 3 months ago. We're looking at last week. So if you want to know what's happening in the property market, up to date, fresh off the press, this show is for you. We are looking at week 9 of 2026, which is Monday the 2nd of March, all the way through to include Sunday the 8th of March. This week, I'm joined by Christian Stott. Christian, former estate agent, now into AI and prop tech and other groovy stuff, brings to the show a different outlook from other guests because he's both ex-estate agent but also with tech as well, can see things from a different angle, and he certainly knows his onions. Thanks for coming back to the show, Christian.
Good morning, Chris. Nice to see you.
Always a pleasure, never a chore. Right, for those of you who've not watched the show before, ladies and gentlemen, the show lasts approximately 1 hour. The first half looks at the UK property market, where myself and Christian will do a detailed analysis of listings, fall throughs, sales, price reductions, exchanges, withdrawals, prices achieved, all that good stuff, and giving our analysis that way. And then the second half of the show is where we focus on a town or a city and really deep dive to find out who is the best estate and letting agent in that town. Obviously, if you're from that town or city, you're going to be all over that like a rash. But if you're not from that city, but you're suffering from the sort of things that many agents are suffering from, which is not being called out to enough valuations, or suffering from agents, competitors who are overvaluing or doing cheap fees, then that part of the show is for you, because we're going to be using a piece of software which shows that if your competitors are doing that, then it gives you independent third data to prove that they're not so good and you're awesome. So do watch that part of the show, because this week we are going to Winchester. This will be our third time to Winchester. It is a particularly favourite city of mine. And we went there 2 years ago, and we went again probably 2 years before that, because this is the 4th year of us doing this show. I always like to keep an eye on that and see who's moving and who's shaking. So without further ado, Christian, let us go firstly and go look at those UK numbers. Here we go. So the way this normally works, ladies and gentlemen, is I just spend 30 seconds just going through the raw numbers, and then we go over to Christian for his thoughts. So this week we have put onto the market 40,225 properties. And as you can see on the graph that you can see on the screen now, this is the other week 9s that going back to 2017. The average price of a property coming onto the market is 439,000. Year to date, we have put on 321,851 properties, which is 1.2% ahead of 2025, 9.3% ahead of 2024, 20.1% ahead of pre-COVID 17, 18 and 19 levels, and 13.2% ahead of the overall decade average. In terms of where we are with regard to listings, this week is the highest week, as I said, at 40,225. And as you can see on the graph there, I'll give you the numbers now. Last week it was at 38.5, the week before that 36.4, the week before that 36.5. The orange line on this graph is 2025, and well, you can see all the other years there. And you can see here that we are actually near as damn it matching 2025 almost perfectly. Anyway, Christian, your thoughts?
Growing numbers, growing stock to the market, good for estate agents, good for buyers, maybe not so good for sellers. You've shown a slight sort of tilt in price to market. We're at that point in the year, the sort of daffodil days, where spring stock starts to arrive at the market. And there's always funny numbers whenever you and I talk about this, because that is a moving feast, isn't it, in the beginning of the year. So it'd be interesting to see the next 4 to 6 weeks how those numbers settle.
Indeed, these are the stock levels, and this is this was the 28th of February going into the 1st of March. We're filming this on Thursday, the 12th of March, so it's not going to be too dissimilar. But you can see here that we did have a slight uplift from the month from January, which again is expected. And again, what you'll notice, ladies and gentlemen, is that and we say this in most weeks in the show, is that the property market is very, very predictable. Is that the stock levels will grow through to the summer, and then they will drift downwards towards winter. And again, if you see the shape, ignoring the silly years of 21 and 22, it's up and down. It's up and down. Look at the shape. They're almost perfect. And the blue lines are the same end of Feb going into March figures. So you're absolutely right. We want almost a Goldilocks amount of listings, properties on the market. Too many, and we have oversupply. Too little, and we have what happened in 21. Again, just to remind everyone, and I do like to remind everyone in most shows, is that these figures back in 2008 were between 1.2 and 1.4 million. So just bear that in mind. That is what caused house prices to crash. There was an oversupply of properties with an under demand because of the credit crunch. The people couldn't get mortgages, so therefore demand was curtailed, and people putting their houses onto the market, too many of them, and that created the price reductions that we got. Right, let's get back. Okay, anything else on listings before we move over to price changes?
Not particularly. It's a similar conversation that when we do the show this point of the year, it's trying to work out what's going to happen between now and July in terms of supply pricing strategy, buyer strength versus seller strength. It's up on last year. We have been struggling for a few years really to get the market volume back really where I think it needs to be from an estate agent's perspective. So, maybe it's some good signs.
Indeed. Right, let's look at price reductions. We reduced 23,537 properties last week. The average price of a property being reduced was 399,000. And last month, because we always do this in arrears, is that 11.4% of homes were being reduced in February. So 11.4% of homes were reduced in February, which again look at the cyclical nature. Look, these are Decembers here. So again, January takes off, then there's always a dip, and then they'll come back up here to around 12%. At the moment, it's early doors on there, but we are looking at around 12.5%. Which again, I just love the cyclical nature of the estate agency business. Again, I ask every week, considering that we are only shifting 1 in 2 homes, do you think reducing 11.4% of your stock is good enough?
Is that a question for me or for the outside world? It's
well, I think
in real terms, you should only ever increase the price of a property as buyers start to frenzy and battle for it. Price reductions are a sign that the price you marketed with was too high for the market that sits in front of you. I think it does show that there's energy in the agency space. They're working hard to get stuff sold, to get deals agreed. That's a good thing.
I mean, let's just remind ourselves that the overvaluing facts and figures, ladies and gentlemen. And again, please do quote these. I'm more than happy. Remember, 1 in 2 homes only end up selling. When I say selling, I mean exchanging and completing. It's 53.5% to be exact. If a home hasn't sold by the 12th week, it only has a 14.5% chance of selling. Since 2001, British homes that have actually sold have sold within 0.9 and 1.3% of their final asking price, not their original, final asking price. Final before they went sale agreed. And remember, this is the big one. Those homes that don't have a price reduction are more likely to be sale agreed by 135%. So of all the properties that are in the sale agreed pipeline, you're more likely to be in there if you weren't price reduced by 135%. Also, they take a third of the time to achieve the sale and half as likely for the sale to fall through.
Yeah, and I think what we often see in the asking to achieve, where agents in a space are compared, is that it's hard to say who is the best agent, the one that gets the highest price. And I think if we take a factor of delivering a consistent volume of sales through a local market, it's generally the agent with the narrowest price band. Get them on the market at the right price, get deals agreed quickly, get them completed and paid quickly. Those are potentially the best agents, even if they may not be getting the highest inflation of price.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. We're going to be looking at the Winchester later, ladies and gentlemen, and we do this show every week, and this is our fourth year of doing it. And there is a clear as day link between those who realistically price, the price that they achieve, but more importantly, do they actually get the house sold? And I'm responsible for the marking of certain. I help with the structure of the marketing on certain a marking of certain estate agency awards, and there's an awful lot big chunk of number is did you get the house sold? And that is, I think, I genuinely believe, Christian, you cannot undersell a property nowadays as long as the photos are okay and you whack it on Rightmove.
That's true. I think it's the right of any potential seller to approach a market with a price at which they're comfortable, and if the market can't sustain it, to come out of the market. And some of your loss rate in that 1 in 2 sold is some of those are vendors who say, if I can get the extra 10, 20, 30,000 pounds, I'll do a deal. And that's their right. They can do that.
It is, but it's also the responsibility of the estate agent to, and again, I use the estate agency triangle. And for those of you that don't, the younger members watching this show, is that the estate agency triangle. My boss told me this in 1993, so many years ago. And basically, on each end of each triangle, ladies and gentlemen, you've got vendor motivation, fee, and asking price. Okay. And my boss always used to say, if you've not got two of those ends of the triangles, don't put it on the market.
100%.
And the most important one is motivation. But, so as long as you've got, you can put something on the market with a great asking price and a great fee. But the big one is only put it on if you've got a great motivation and a great fee, or a great motivation and a great asking price.
The thing that's changed between then and now, apart from my fringe, is that back in those days, it wasn't obscene to take upfront fees for marketing, etc. And you would always charge for brochure production and things like that. Some of that time was pre-digital print, therefore the cost of LIFO was actually very expensive. You're talking thousands to prepare a property for market. And if vendors paid upfront fees, it wasn't to a detriment to the agent to put it on the market at a crazy price and not sell it. These days, it's slightly different. Our on-demand systems now mean that we don't have that material impact of putting a property on the market quite like we did in the 90s. It's an interesting one because it's okay not to sell, I suppose.
It is, but at the end of the day, and again, we're not. Every estate agent has a responsibility to themselves, but when the listing is more important than the sale, you've got to question what your motivation is. And so many agents' ego means that they would rather take on an overpriced property that they know they won't sell than allow their competitors' board to be outside the house.
Yes, I think the difficult factor is did they know they wouldn't sell it? Because if they've got a strategy of price adjustment, knowing that everything starts high, sells low, maybe they always knew that they were going to sell it. It was just how and how long that was the problem.
Well, again, it's interesting. I've been having some interesting chats on the sofa recently, and there was a certain corporate estate agency was just put it on at any price, and we'll get it down. There's a huge difference between we've seen it time and time again, and we can read the stats. There are agents out there that overvalue, that get their price down in 2 or 3 weeks, have great saleability rates, as in exchange to listing. And get good prices. So you can ethically overvalue. But it's those that...
Also, Chris, you've got that is today's overpriced vendor tomorrow's accurately priced vendor? In that,
come on, we're not in that sort of market. You know damn
no,
well.
no, no, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying
You're
is
baiting
that
me there.
boards beget boards. And so if you are the agent on Rightmove with the most properties for sale, that has an impact on would-be sellers who are trying to choose an estate agent. Whether they eventually sell or not is not necessarily data that the public has access to, nor is genuinely interested in. It's, if I pick an estate agent, yeah, there's social proof, yeah, there's social media, yeah, there's a friend in the pub told me use the one with the red board type thing. But we are swayed by number of stock on market in Rightmove.
Of course,
there are other portals.
because most agents are really rubbish at their own marketing. So therefore,
I'm not getting in on that one.
Okay, they're really good at marketing homes, but they're not very good at marketing themselves. Most agents' marketing strategy is put all my listings on social media, and then hopefully other people that will rat other people out to put their houses on the market for that, which then that will rat out other vendors, and that will keep it almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. I would say is this: what if you have a bad few weeks on your listings? If your listing strategy, if your method of business generation is to use listings to rat people out, I think you're on a house of cards. I keep banging on about it. Be the local authority. Talk about the local property market, because whenever you're at a party and someone finds out you're an agent, they always ask you, how's the market? So therefore, all I'm suggesting to agents is talk about the bloody market. Talk about the market, talk about your location, talk about why it's a great place to live. Don't just whack.
But this is something on which we have always agreed, that they've got to dominate a number of channels, and I don't think that they should work that sort of local nourishment channel to the exclusion of listing and marketing property. They've got to blend the whole lot across a omni-channel, omni-statement marketing strategy.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people say, accuse me, don't put listings. Yes, you should put your listings on your social media, but don't just put all your listings. It's a bit like, child and sweets. Yes, should you give child sweets? Yes, but not just all sweets. Got to give them something else. Right, off the soapbox. Back we go. Sale agreed. 25,600, which is 1,000 less than last week. Actually, we'll just pull that up there so you can see that little dip down there. Year to date, we are on 219,200, which is 5.7% less than 25, 9.1% ahead of 24, 18.4% ahead of pre-COVID 17, 18, 19 levels. Now, what is particularly interesting, Christian, is that the gap between 26 and 25 has been narrowing for the last 7 weeks.
Right.
Okay? But it slipped very slightly. Very, very slightly.
What, last couple of weeks?
No, last week. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot going on though, isn't there? People, in terms of affordability, in terms of cost of borrowing linked to affordability, etc. People are a little bit unsettled at the moment. Our sort of geopolitical landscape is uncomfortable, isn't it? Which often affects people's motivation to go out and risk a load of money.
It is, but I'm not too panicking because, again, look, as you say, we all had a little bit of dip. But again, remember, a swallow doesn't make a spring, so let's just keep an eye on that and just see where the trend of that line is, and we'll keep an eye on that. So there is our standalone week 9 figures. We've done the year to date, and we've done the whole year there. Again, just reminding ourselves with regard to sales is that in a few weeks' time, we're about a month away, 6 weeks away. We have Easter, and remember the sales. What you'll find is the 2 bank holidays in May and the Easter bank holiday. You will have a drop in sales by about 6,000 or 7,000 that week, or approximately 20%. So just be aware of that and don't panic. Okay, let's move on to the sell-through rate. This is what percentage of your available stock did you sell in February. We always did some month in arrears, and it was 15.4%, which again is in line with year to date.
Correct number, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. Again, I always find it fascinating that if you would have asked an estate, you asked an estate agent what percentage of your properties on your books were you selling in the COVID post-COVID years, people would say 70, 80%. No, it only just reached 30%. Again, fascinating stats to see. Moving on, we look at this particular figure here. It shows you the average asking price, which is the red line, and the turquoise line shows you the final asking price before the property went sale agreed. That doesn't mean, so for this week alone, the average price of a property coming on the market was 439, and the average price of a property going sale agreed is 361. We're not saying that the properties have dropped from 439 to 361, because remember, the lower price properties have a higher propensity or chance of selling, which drags the average down. What is important here is the gap between the two.
That gap is narrower, isn't it?
Well, the gap this week is 21.6. The long-term average is 16 or 17, but it is always higher at this time of year. And again, just so you're aware, the yellow lines there, ladies and gentlemen, are London. What happens is that, and again, regular viewers to the show know this, is that in West London and South West London, in the W and SW postcodes, everyone puts their houses on the market end of August, early September, and that's no more than 5,000 homes. Just drags the average up a tree. It's amazing what London will do to averages. See this one here, all these are all very cyclical. This one here, that was the budget. You know, when they were talking about the mansion tax, that one there. Sorry about it moving around. That one there was the mansion tax, and basically a lump of properties between 1 and 2 million being put on the market.
Gotcha.
And not many actually, probably a couple of hundred, and it affected the averages that much. Let's go to sales fall throughs, 5,516, which is 21.54. What is 21.54? It's the percentage of sale fall throughs expressed as a percentage of the gross sales that week. So there's our sale fall through rate, and as I said, at 21%, which is in line with where we were expecting it to be. I think this is a better. So there's our numbers again. The general trend is still downwards. And again, a graph which I think is particularly important is, and I think more of a better way to judge fall throughs is what percentage of your sales pipeline fell through last month. And again,
why do you think that line goes down? Is it the drive to bring more upfront material information? Is it the increase in auction and reservation agreement stock? What's doing that? Because that trend over the period of what have we got here, 6, 7, 9 years. I mean, it's the trend that the industry needs. Why is it happening? What do you think is impacting that?
And again, let's just remind ourselves that actually pipelines are very full at the moment. We went into the 1st of February with 434,000 properties. When you consider that pre-COVID levels, they were around that 300 mark. And again, let's just remind ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, is that it was still taking 19 weeks to get a sell through pre-COVID than it does now. So we're still running at higher figures, which is great news. And the biggest problem, as I said, is getting them through. To answer your question, I think it's 2 reasons.
Go on.
The first one is this, and this number shocked me, is that around 1 in 5 to 1 in 4 estate agents in the UK has reservation agreements.
As in across all stock, or just as a percentage of stock?
As in terms of the number of, so in terms of the number of firms that I know that are estate agents, and the number of firms that use reservation agreements. Do all of those firms use reservation agreements on all their properties? No. Anecdotal evidence suggests when I talk to them, it's normally around 6 or 7 out of 10.
Oh God, that's huge. Okay.
And the wonderful thing about reservation agreements, and again, I know I'm teaching going to case with you, but ladies and gentlemen, all those host sales that fall through when someone threatens to pull out because if you don't exchange by Friday, I'm pulling out, and damn well they're not going to do it. That can't be happening. It's just physically unable to do. So they have to pull out because they threatened it, and no one wants to lose face. Reservation agreements, because I know, as I said, you've had dealings with them in the past yourself, is that they stop that because all of a sudden there is consequences that they'll lose 3 or 4 grand. And as long as
Yeah,
they
yeah,
are,
yeah. And there's that, always that if not, why not? So a vendor coming to the market who won't instruct a solicitor and actually prepare a property for sale in the way it should be, and a buyer presenting an offer, if not, why not? If you won't put your money where your mouth is, why not? What are you worried about? Are you worried you might change your mind? Are you worried you've got 3 or 4 choices in front of you and you know you're going to pick one of them? So I think the reservation agreement or modern method of auction, both slightly different in terms of the way the property transacts and is brought to conclusion, but actually quite similar in that ransom. That if you change your mind, you're going to lose a load of money. And I think if you look at the modern method figures, the percentage of cancelled sales through that, I don't actually know what it is with reservation agreements. With modern method, it's a tiny proportion, and most of those are serious changes in circumstance which were unavoidable and potentially unpredictable. And I think it's a good thing.
my understanding is that the fall through rate on reservation agreements is somewhere in the region of 7 or 8%.
Right. And I guess the reasons for those are material. Like it was, better to lose the money than push through with the deal.
Well, actually, again, if you're an estate agent, have you actually spoken to a provider? Because there are get out of jail cards. If the survey is downvalued by a certain percentage and it's not a silly high amount,
Yeah.
the buyer can pull out. If there's
Right. Or renege.
yeah. So that there are it's not a be all and end all. There are get out of jail cards. And again, what I do is this is the amount of you've got to get the valuers bought into the concept that it's not a barrier to get the listing, it's actually an enabler to get the listing. And that's why whenever
Is anyone doing reservation agreements for free yet?
I don't know that.
Because I think that would be seismic. If there was no financial barrier to opting for a reservation agreement at the vendor listing end, maybe everybody would do it.
Okay, I would actually say the issue with reservation agreements is not with the vendor or the buyer, it's with the valuer and the estate. It's the valuer seeing it as a block, as a listing blocker, and it isn't. So therefore,
do you think that it's that highbrow, or do you think it's just a capability to remember all the sales points they've got to bring into their pitch? Are they just more comfortable at 1% plus VAT? Thank you very much.
I'm of the opinion that employed valuers will just want the listing at any cost, and will that's why valuers are really rubbish. Not all, most are really rubbish at getting FS leads.
Those are the views of you. Yeah, I didn't say that. Okay,
I'm saying it because
fair enough.
Nothing can get in the way of losing the listing. Okay.
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay, and therefore, as a valuer, if you can learn to lose the listing, so therefore,
you say that, but yet we're also seeing this dramatic change in the space, and I don't necessarily mean in terms of proportional numbers, but if you look at the rise to fame of brands like EXP, I would say it's a fundamental part of the day job of a self-employed agent not to take bad stock. Any self-employed agent who isn't on the payroll.
Okay, yeah, but hold on, you're looking from inside the tent. They've only got 1.5% of the market, right?
No, I agree with you, but what I'm saying is that is a wind of change where you don't get any money at the end of the month if you haven't sold a property. Therefore, you don't want any property that you can't sell.
Indeed, and as I said, I published this. I was on stage at the EA Masters. The bottom line is that self-employed estate agents exchange contracts on way more percentage-wise than employed estate agents, and get more for the house as well.
And that is the figure that any employed model should be looking very hard at. How much cash are we burning by not incentivizing the correct behaviors in our people? And I think it's quite a frightening amount of money.
What I would say, though, just for the record, to give balance to this show, is that there are a number of northern regional estate agent chains.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, whose numbers blow EXP and the self-employeds out the water.
Are they formerly independent and now not so?
Could possibly be that, yes.
Right. But they've always been very good at their craft.
There you go. So therefore, the self-employed model is not the be-all and end-all. And
so good management is the be-all and end-all.
There you go then. I think we've hit the nail on the head there. Right, let's go through to net sales before we start digging our holes anymore. Right, okay.
You're saying, yeah, go on.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't worked it all out, then I can't say because I'll get what's named. Right, net sales 20,000, 20,000, well, an 87. So we'll call that. Last week it was 21,34. The week before that, 21,1. The week before that, 21,2. So again, gross sales are slightly down. So therefore, net sales are going to be slightly down. So it just dipped. And we're just actually lower than 2024, which again is slight, again, a swallow doesn't make a summer, as we say. So let's not, but be aware that we are slightly off the boil. Just to give you an idea, we are 4.5%, 3.5% lower than 25, 8.6% higher than 24, and 14.8% higher. Oh, look, so it's been nicked off the graph. That's 17, 18, and 19. Bad, Chris, for not doing that. So there you go. That's net sales. Let's move on. Price changes as a percentage of listings and gross sales as a percentage of listings. Moving forward in terms.
Sorry, just on those two, price changes and gross sales. Okay, so price changes compared to previous times are quite high. And then if you jump to the next 27, gross sales percentage of listings is quite low. Those are potentially unhappy marriage, aren't they?
No, ignore 21 and 22.
I always do.
Yeah, I just think we had a week last week, which was just we had a bit of sniffles, bit of a cold. It's not flu.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's the lowest that it has been in 9 years, though, Chris.
Yeah, but remember, we did have a super duper listings week at 40,000. Just remind ourselves. Okay.
Okay, so their amount of stock to take the percentage of is greater than it has been in the past, you say?
Yeah.
Okay. Can live with that.
There we go. Right then. Okay, so this is exchanges versus withdrawals. Red is exchanges, yellow is withdrawals. Again, we have to take this with a slight pinch of salt, ladies and gentlemen, because we haven't got all the data through for February at the moment. So this starts dripping through. So, we have to wait for this to increase. But so far this month, of the properties of the records we have found, 52.5% of the homes that left agents' books in February exchanged, meaning that 47.5% withdrew unsold, which means you've got a 1 in 2 chance of getting paid on the listings. There you go. We've said it before. There's no point repeating ourselves. 1 in 2 chance of flipping a coin. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Pound per square foot. The magic number here is that yellow line. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you can see here that it's been pretty static, bouncing around that 330, 340.
Sorry, you say it's a flip of a coin, but I think there's that piece around. You talk about what agents should be marketing, what they should be talking about.
This is do you get the house sold or not? Of course.
Well, if you actually did a survey of people either coming to the market or on the market and asked them that simple question, did you know it was a coin flip? Did you know? And then more importantly, did you know that it was down to you to almost drive the agent's valuation down to a price that is guaranteed to sell, to bring your own motivation to the market, like getting a solicitor, taking a reservation agreement? I don't think the vendor knows those things. I don't think they know how much control they have over that 52.5% number. If they were sufficiently educated, they'd probably be in total control of that number, and then it would go up.
I agree. I mean, I had to babysit some Australians last year, and they consider a bad estate agent at 80%.
Yeah, they don't not sell property, do they? But they get paid better, I suppose.
There you go. Let's just come back to this graph, pound per square foot. This is my favorite measurement of house prices, ladies and gentlemen, because the pound per square foot at a national level can foretell what the National Land Registry figure will do 5 months in advance, almost perfectly, to a 92% Pearson Coalition coefficient. I can't say that. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I'm presently on Codemol at the moment because I've got a bad back, so slightly away with the fairies. But £343 per square foot. What the figure's almost irrelevant, ladies and gentlemen. What is important is the direction of that graph. So if you want to know where the bottom of the market is or the top of the market, we know 5 months in advance by following that yellow line. So always come back and watch that, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to know where the direction of the house prices are going. Anything on that or anything else before we go?
No, other than, we know that social and affordable housing is a big factor. We don't have enough houses. We need more. So I guess that number is duty bound to keep climbing until we start building in the volume that we need to be building in.
You're so right. You're so right. Right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the first part of the show. We'll now go to Winchester. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we are using a piece of kit called Insight. Insight is a software platform from a firm called 20EA. 20EA have a number of software platforms that do various different things for estate agents. Insight is a bit like Rightmove Plus on steroids. Myself and Christian and others are huge fanboys of it because the data and the story that it gives you is truly, as the name would suggest, insightful. I am not being paid by 20EA to promote this software. They do give me their software free of charge to enable me to do the first part of the show. The Insight platform is available to estate agents. There is a free version, which allows you to, your postcodes up, and only has 3 months of data, but it allows you to have a play with it. Then there is a package which has 10 postcode districts, and then there's a regional one, and then there's the national one. And they're all the same, and the only difference is the locations and the extent of the postcodes that they cover. My understanding is, and I'm pleased I'm not on commission, although I bloody well should be, the cost of the 10 postcode district is the cost of a decent takeaway for 4 people with a couple of bottles of decent Sauvignon Blanc. Are you a Sauvignon Blanc man, Christian, or more of a Chardonnay man?
I prefer my wine with hops in, to be honest with you, Chris.
All right, there goes that. You're a beer man. Well done. Right. But anyway, as I said, I'm not here, as I said, on commission. But ladies and gentlemen, if you are an estate, whether Winchester agents, you're going to be all over this. But if you're not a Winchester agent, but you are looking for something, and obviously you've got to have the figures to back this up. If you suffer from overvaluing or cheap fees or stuff like that, then this is independent data, which is truly amazing and will prove that you are a better estate agent. So without further ado, let's go and have a look. If anyone has any issues with regard to the data, please contact 20EA direct. They've got a website. I has cross-referenced this against big firms, small firms, medium firms, firms that I work for, and the accuracy rate is around 98 to 99%. What is particularly interesting is that I always like to look at the Foxtons numbers because they have to publish them because they're PLC, and they're on their exchanges there were 2 out. So I think that's pretty good every year. So without further ado, let's go and have a look. So the way this normally works is I just rabbit on, and Christian, you cut across me if you see something that's really interesting, okay? So if you're watching this on a phone, I'd stop now because you're not going to see anything at all. And I'll explain what's happening. So the data itself goes 5 years plus the year we're in. So it goes to from the 1st of January 21. I'm just going to knock this back to the end of February because I find full months are just more of an indicative than we're only a week and a bit in. And you can measure everything from exchanges, fall throughs, new instructions, price changes, relists, sold subject contracts, and withdrawals. You can go postcode districts, postcode. So again, just for the information, I'm doing SO 21, 22, and 23. But if I decided I could go down to individual postcode districts as well. I'm not doing new homes because I feel that muddies the waters. I could look at property type if I wanted to, but I'm not. And I'm doing all price ranges from 0 up to 14 million, 14 million being the most expensive house that was listed in Winchester in the last 5 and a bit years. We'll start off with new instructions because that's what you all like to measure as estate agents. And we're going to start off with charter. So let's remember that the average price of a property that's come on the market in the last 5 and a bit years is 677,681, which is again a sizable figure, mate, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it's what you call it. Affluent probably isn't the right term, is it?
But, it is. Have you ever been? It's a beautiful city.
Yeah, I used to live near there, and it's one of my favourite places, or it was. It's many years since I've been, but it was a beautiful place.
The streets are with clover and honey and milk and just sticky buns and everything. It's brilliant. It's a lovely place. Anyway, get back to being serious here. 9,240 properties have come onto the market in the last 5 years. Let's just have a quick look, though, of how many properties have actually exchanged. 5,777. So again, just shows you the number of people that are not selling.
So one thing that is interesting, and I genuinely can't remember different conversations we've had or different data we've looked at, but to me, the average property price versus the average square foot price for that area, it appears to me you don't get a huge amount for your money.
No, probably don't. But again, it's if you're all the posh people in London live in southwest London, and they get their bonus checks, and they come down the M3. Is it the M3? Yeah, it is the M3, isn't it? Does that
It used to be the A3, didn't it? It used to be Guildford, Godalming, Hazelmere, that sort of area. So
was that going down to
getting further.
It's the M26. Oh, I don't know. But basically, it's the first awesome, beautiful city if you want to be out of London in that direction. And it is an absolutely beautiful place. I can see why people would want to go there. But anyway, we're preaching to the converted here. Let's crack on. New instructions. So again, we all know estate agents love to measure themselves. So we'll start off with charters. And we're looking at the general direction of that graph. And we can see that they obviously had a good 21, tailed off in 22, sort of treaded water in 23 and 24.
But they're a high volume agent in that market. But also, if you look at the bulk of their stock, it sits in a reasonably high price bracket. That is unusual given the data we often look at.
No, but remember the average is 655. So, I mean, look,
yeah, but on the highest volume agent, we often see a bump at that 200 to 400K pricing space, and it's not visible with charters. Their bump is up at 4 through to 1 million.
What I would say though is do remember that some of these price bands are split between the 50s and some of them are like 100 and there's 150.
Yeah.
So there's nothing untoward there. If memory serves me well, Charters sold their firm out to one of the corporates in the last 12, 18 months. I can't remember.
Okay.
Could you just have a quick look? Do you mind just having a quick look online?
Yeah.
I tell you what, Charters, they don't. I've been on their website and had a look, and they don't do it anymore. Used to produce what I considered the very best estate agent newsletter in the whole of the UK. Absolutely jaw-droppingly amazing.
Right.
A3 folded into A4. Okay, printed with insightful stuff on the Winchester property market, what was happening to house prices, what was happening to rents. Making them the authority of Winchester. Right. Okay, they don't do it anymore, and I don't know why. But I tell you what, it takes a lot to impress me, and it was absolutely amazing. So there's Charters. So again, okay, that's fine, goes. Let's go look at Belgaram's. Okay, so again. So Charters are at 21 and Belgaram's, and I think Belgaram is this, if memory serves me well, I think it's the Roman name for Winchester. I'm going off memory there, if memory serves me well. They're at 12%. So
I think my memory of Asterix books probably tells me that's true, but...
So again, what we've got here is nice and steady at around 12 or 13% through 21, 22, 23. Looks like they had a poor 24, and it looks like they've picked their stocks up slightly since 25. And at
Who have they had
12%,
that market share from? Because they have had a little bit of growth, haven't they, in the last year?
they have. Well, we're going to have a look. We've got a nice little
Okay.
chart coming up to see what's happened in the last year, nice and easy as well. So we'll have a look at
Yeah.
that. Okay. Okay. Right. Let's go look at. I don't know how you pronounce that. Dibbles or dibbles. Let's have a look. So look, the average drops to 422. So they're obviously a lower to middle market agent. So more of a say an Aldi or a Morrison's estate agent, if we were using the analogy of supermarket brands.
Okay.
Lots of spikes there, aren't there? What have we got there? What's happening here?
Yeah, because these are market share spikes, aren't they? So it could be the result of initiatives that they've used from marketing or sell fee free
Yeah.
for listings this week. But it is interesting to see those dramatic bumps.
And again, what? Yeah, that's quite spiky.
Mm.
Normally, I would normally expect, be, 18, and then you go down to 8, and then up to 16, then down to 9. That is good and bad months. Let's go
Just
and look
excuse
at.
me, please, Chris. One moment.
So let's look at Winkworth's. Again, franchise operation, got a nice soft spot for them. Nice, tidy, around the 7 or 8%, 6, 7% mark. We'll go to Savills. And again, the average price,
Right up there, isn't it?
yeah, 1.3 million. We will be looking at the upper quartile in a second, and we will be looking at the last year to see if there's any new ones coming up on the ramps.
Goadsby are always a great agent.
Market share growth 396. In my head, I would have had them a higher price.
Yeah, but I think they cover quite a wide area, so this could actually be a small influence space for their wider coverage.
I don't know. I mean, if you look, I mean, their market share, the overall in the last 5 years is 5.28, but at the moment they're punching at about 7 or 8. So well done, Goadsby's on that. Let's go to Hamptons, slipping, average 914. We will look at the upper quartile. Let's go look at Martin and Co.
This is just sales only when you click on Martin and Co.
This
isn't
is
it?
sales only. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I know that we've got Nonny there who works under the Martin Co banner, working for Julian Bessie at there. She is a great estate agent, big on personal brand. And again, one thing that I think a lot of agents around the UK should embrace personal branding. Right, let's go to Pearson's. Nice and steady. Romans 386. And we just did look at the. Okay, so Romans again, look at the lower end market. Carter Jonas. Okay, not much happening there, guys. Knight Frank. Okay, we'll just go down to number. Okay, we'll just keep going down until number 20.
So sorry, Chris. We have how many years of coverage here? We have almost 5 years of coverage.
Yes.
And we're looking at property counts of 80 over 5 years. So they're not players, are they really?
No, so that's why I didn't spend too much time on them.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. First thing I want to do is look at the upper quartile. So I'm going to chance.
It is quite a low volume market, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's not a huge place there, mate.
No. Okay.
Okay, this is more of the upper quintile, upper 20%. Let's have a look, and we can see, wow, okay. So we've got Savills, Charters, Bulgarians, and Knight Frank fighting it out. That's quite an interesting market. So let's just for what's name giggles, let's just go over 2 million, just see if there's a massive change. Yes, Savills and Knight Frank, but the numbers are really small. So we'll take that back to something a bit more sensible. Million. So it looks like Savills in the post-million mark are losing market share. Let's see what if Charters are. Looks like they're taking some of their dinner. Bulgarians, they're growing as well. Knight Frank. So we've got the two local estate agents taking some of more of the national Savills and Knight Franks dinners away from them. That's very interesting. We will have a look a bit more detail at that in a second. Right, okay, let's go and look and see if there's any young whippersnappers coming up on the rails, and we will look at there we go. Let's go 1st of March. There we go. So charters. See, again, you've got to admit 20-25% market share is good. Looks like you've had a bad couple of months, but to be hovering at around 18 or 19%, and because that's bad, well, that is actually quite good. But just making sure that you guys at Charters don't want to dip too much off on that. Let's see if Belgarums are doing. There you go. It looks like Belgarums are nicking some of Charters' lunch money there, I think. There you go. Interesting, don't you think?
Hang on. So they've done 226 in 2 years.
This is 1 year.
1 year, 226 listings. So let's divide that by 2 is 110 sales at, say, £6,000 fee, would you say? They're not big businesses, are they? But I guess you're constraining the postcodes to where? Winchester city centre, are you?
Winchester, 21, 22, 23. So
yeah, so only 3 postcodes. Okay, fair enough. They're good numbers for 3 postcodes, aren't they? In terms of volume.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think these agents are doing 0.5% fees here.
No. I'm working on £6,000 to £7,000 average fee.
Yeah, probably a bit more actually. Okay, let's just see. So I can't see anyone coming up on the. No, I can't see. Oh, there's an EXP. Bless.
So yeah, purple bricks down at what? Yeah, just not even there, are they?
No. But again, that's indicative of their national picture as well. So there's nothing there that's screaming
or at
out.
least it was until the brothers come back.
Well, there you go. That was news a couple of days ago, wasn't it? No one saw that one coming, did they? Right. Okay. I think we're there. Let's move on to the next screen. Right. Okay. So this particular. Right. Here we go. So this is when I say last year's market share. This is for listings, ladies and gentlemen. This is the last 12 months. So this is March 26 back to March 25. That's this year. And then last year is March 25 back to March 24. And you can see here that Goadsby's have upped their game. Pearson's have. Dybals have. Belgarums.
Well, if we look at the actual numbers, 2.18% is what? 1 instruction? 2 instructions?
Don't know. Remember, my brain is frazzled at the moment. So we did say that Charters have dropped a bit. I'm surprised about Belgarums because the numbers. Let's just have a quick look at sales, though. And Belgarums are up 1.67, but Charters are down.
So Dibbles are doing very well there.
Yeah.
So they lost their volume. Yeah, and they've got a reasonable volume as well.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah, that's it. Dybals, I'm beginning to more. I'm liking them. They were kind of overshadowed, weren't they? Let's just bring this back here. Here we go. There's new instructions. Let's look at sales. So they had a good start there. Still not bad at all. Look, up 14, 15, 16%. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Right, let's get back. Right then. Okay. Now, a lot of information going on here, ladies and gentlemen. So what I need to do is break this down. I'd like you to totally ignore new instructions, new instruction market share, sole subject to contracts and sole subject to contract percentage. I just want you to look at these 4 columns here because this is where the true gold is, okay? You see, in the last year, 12th of March 25 to 11th of March 26, what's happened is that Charters in those postcodes, 430 properties have left Charters books. 218 plus 212 is 430, of which 50.7% of exchange contracts and 49.3% have withdrawn. Because if you add the exchange percentage up to the withdrawn percentage on every line, they add up to 100%. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is quite simply the most important number here. Did you sell the house and get the homeowner moved or not? What price you achieve for it, we'll come on to in a second. So what this is telling me is this, right? Let's just put the calculator out. Dibbles exchange contracts on 60.1% of the houses that they exchange on.
66.1.
66.1, yes, you're right, my apologies. And then I divide that by 50.7. What this says is this. If Dibbles are up against Charters in the sofa, Dibbles can say the following. Mrs. Niggins, Dibbles have a 30.3% greater chance of getting you sold than that other firm. Belgarum's, let's put that in, 64.89 divided by 50.7. Belgarum's can say, we have a 27.98% chance of getting you moved than that other agent.
Yeah.
That's powerful stuff. I'm not
even if they never tell the vendor, the impact that will have on the P&L for the owners of those businesses is substantially different. If you look at the fact that margins are pretty low in the space at the moment, or the net output is quite low, those businesses get paid more times for the work they do.
I mean, to give you an idea, if Charters were running at the same exchange ratios as Belgarum's and Dibbles, they would exchange contracts on 61 more properties in a year. And if we're working on an average fee of, I'm going to be generous, at £8,000.
Wow, that hurts.
That means Charters have missed out on £492,000 of exchange income because their exchange ratio is lower. I am not criticizing Charters. I have a real soft spot for you guys. But this, the data doesn't care about your feelings. Yeah. But then again, let's look at Goadsby's. They're at 63. Martin & Co. with Nonny, 70.24. Well done. Toby Gullick, you're at 56. We've got Carter Jonas at 69, which is amazing for a big ticket agent. Amazing. Really, really, really good stuff. Let's just have a quick look at the million mark just to see, because again, the numbers. Okay, here we go. So again, the numbers will be lower. I would expect them to be lower because high-priced properties have a lower propensity to sell. So there's not much there. But again, Belgarum's do well at 53. So again, if we put this in 53.3 divided by 44.9, no, that's not going to be that much. But yeah.
Well, I tell you an interesting number. So, if you compare Charters to Martin & Co., 10 is less than half of 23. But then compare 44.2 to 62.50. If you multiply those by the same fee, there's a viability question there, isn't there, in terms of turning up to do the work?
But Martin,
in terms of money in the till for the work that was done.
Yeah, just looking at million mark, I think Belgarum's have an 18.7% greater chance of getting you shifted with £1 million plus property in Winchester compared to Savills. Again, I'm not criticizing, just sharing you with the data.
That's huge, isn't it? But up at nearly 20%.
So again, I said at the start of the show, this is groundbreaking stuff, and people go, yeah. You can see why it's groundbreaking stuff. Let's just have a quick look at the fall through rates. 26.2, which is the Winchester average, which is in line with national averages.
Sorry, Chris, if you just look, there's two numbers there, just because you were comparing Charters and Belgarum. If you look at their SSTC ratio, 58 versus 75.
Yes.
So it could be that their amount of exchange is propelled by a number of factors. Some of that's going to be around the quality of their sales progression. But I would expect to see that Belgarum's asking to achieved ratio is pretty solid, because they're meeting vendor expectation by converting at 75% to sale. They haven't got grumpy customers. You look below them at Dibbles, 84%. That is a good number.
They do,
in terms of price accuracy and meeting market and vendor expectations simultaneously, 84% said it all there.
Okay, have you noticed here that they're 10% ahead on the sale agreed, but they're almost identical on the exchanges? So
that's a sales progression factor, potentially, material information. There's a lot there.
Okay, so there's the fall through rates. 26.2 is the average. It looks like Charter's slightly high at 32. We've got some mid of the road stuff. 32, that's quite high. What's that? Goadsby's. Yeah, okay. There's some small stuff there. Okay, nothing to write home about. Right, price changes.
There you go.
So there you go. So
more than double.
So therefore, charters are price changing 67.44% of the houses.
They're not meeting vendor expectations.
And Belgarans
what do you say? It's cost them 600 grand a year to not meet vendor expectation.
I can't remember the number. It was a big number.
Big number.
Who's at 62? Goadsby's. Okay. What's your exchange? So again, right, this is what this is telling me here, right? Price changes at 62, which is higher than the average, but an exchange ratio of 63. So what that is, what we know, I can tell you what that is. They are putting the property on the market and overvaluing it to start with, yet they are bringing their price down pretty quickly.
And potentially by less than charters.
We don't know the amount they're dropping it by, but
no, but that data's in here. It must be, because it must list every price reduction.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But what that's telling me is this: if you overvalue, which means you have to bring the prices down, and you have a low exchange rate, that means you're waiting too long to get the price down. But if you have a high exchange rate and a high price change, it means you're overvaluing, but you're getting the price down with good vendor management pretty quickly, which I ain't got a problem with. Okay, because obviously,
and if you have a high SSTC and a high exchange and a low price change rate, what are you then?
Oh, you're superstar, golden wards, big prize, win loads of.
It also means that on the sofa, you're explaining clearly to a vendor why you've picked a pricing strategy, why it suits their position. And they're agreeing with you, rather than drifting to that bright light, which you shouldn't walk towards, of a massive price that is entirely unachievable.
True. Well, let's have a look and see if we can put some light on that, and we can. Okay. Right. Okay.
Well, there you go. We've just answered the question there, haven't we?
There's a lot going on here, ladies and gentlemen. So let me just explain what's happening here. Okay. This column here is what we call the overvaluing column, right? 20 EA have an automated valuation model figure, or a ValPal figure, others are available, for every property in the UK, and then they judge what they basically, what you put on market for versus what they think the house is worth, and then they take the average percentage. So on average, charters put the property on the market at 1.8% more than what 20 think it's worth. Then everyone else is sub 1%, and again, as you go down, the numbers get slightly higher. But again, you've got to take, the further down you go the list, you've got to take it with a slight pinch of salt, ladies and gentlemen, because they're lower numbers. But this is where the true magic happens.
Well, you say that. If we start there really at say Romans, in terms of looking at volume versus variance, from Romans up, there are some, on the variance to average there, from Romans upwards, there are some really very interesting numbers, because in terms of money in pocket to the vendor, there's a number of those agents that will sell your house for free, comparatively speaking.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves here, okay? But there is definitely a link between charters and Romans have the highest overvaluing percentage in that top 10 or whatever it is, and also have the highest in the next column, which is price achieved from original asking price. Because the red line, the next column here, which is the red bars, is what price did you achieve from the original asking price? So charters put the properties on the market on average at 1.8% over what 20A thought the house was worth, and then achieved on average 5.73% less than the original asking price. As Romans had a fuller price at 2.12% and achieved 6.93%. Let's just have a quick look at Romans and their price reductions. %. So look, big numbers. Again, it's just
you've got LRG
about pricing
and Lohman there, competing for stock basically at the sofa.
Now, a lot of people don't like percentages, so therefore what 20EA do is this. If everyone put on a £700,000 house, what would each agent eventually achieve for it? And there is some massive variance in there. Look at the two different ones. Look at the difference between the two. Belgaram's at +6.7 and Charters at -5.1. Well, if you take the difference between the two, that's 11,800 quid. Belgaram's can say
we worked on a fee of what? Between 6 and 8 grand?
Yeah, selling it for free.
Well, 11 grand they're paying you.
Yeah. I told you at the start, ladies and gentlemen, this website is absolutely amazing. What you do have to be able to do is read the data and then turn it into a message that vendors can understand.
I think also agents can blend their own data into this, because there's a number of figures here that we aren't party to and never will be. So the two figures that, or there's a number of figures, but actually prior to new instruction, there is market appraisal conversations, so leads. There is market appraisals booked in the diary, as in converted leads. And then there are market appraisals converted into new instructions. And that data, if the agent blends their own data there with this data, they start to build a fuller picture of their soup to nuts transactional journey on a per customer basis, i.e., how do we perform at a marketing and local lead level? How do we perform at a contact center, neg conversion to appointment, conversion valuation to that new instruction? And I think, then they can add on the cost. There's obviously the reputational piece, but the cost of managing that stock through its life cycle to completed and paid, and all of the events that go along in that journey, with time too, number of days between, and net impact cost. And I it is really interesting that some of these businesses are probably quite relaxed places to work, and other businesses are probably not.
And Belgaram's could just say, we get £6,784 more than the average Winchester estate agent for an average Winchester house.
Drop mic. And there are other agents in that let's call it reasonable volume list. If we start at Romans, looking at Pearson's there, Hamptons, Martin and Co, Winkworth, and obviously Belgaram, they perform for their vendor clients. That's not fair. That's not fair. They all perform for their vendor clients, but in terms of the back pocket material impact of working with that agent versus another, according to this data, and there is some controversy around this average listing price, 700K. It doesn't bring in all of the factors of an agency business. It's just a little way of looking at it from here. But
you're
it's
right.
Interesting data.
But I mean, you could say Winkworth, we get £4,866 more than the average Winchester estate agent for an average Winchester house. Martin and Co, we get £5,395 more for an average Winchester house than an average Winchester estate agent. Powerful stuff. And by the way, you're more likely to get your house sold because our exchange ratio, is 18-20% more, because you don't just say it's not the diff. It's not, you don't take one from the other. You divide one by the other. It's good mathematics.
And I think conversationally that if I versus my competitor sold your property for exactly the same fee, so we level that out completely, exactly the same fee, I will get you more money and it will be less stressful. The price reduction process is anxious because people are there going, hang on, that's my money you're spending. That £15,000 that is a simple reduction for you. It's a couple of clicks in a CRM for you. That 15 grand is my pension, my kids' school fees. It's whatever that 15 grand is my money.
You're so right. I have very close family members who have put houses on market, and their perception is, and we know as estate agents that they're not losing the money, but 30 grand. Well, I've lost 30 grand. Now this, logically, well, you never had it, so you're not lost it. But people don't think that way and act that way.
It is why I absolutely love lower to highest, because it's not starting at the lotto win sensation, the fireworks show. It's starting at the resting heartbeat of the market and your baseline. We will not sell below 250 grand. That's where we're setting our reserve or our starting. So that the number you have in your back pocket, or you don't sell, one of the two, is that value. Everything above that is fabulous. Rather than you might have, but everything below that is loss.
But here's the proof. Look, the ones that don't overvalue get much better figures for their prices. The ones that do cook the figures a bit, over-egg the pudding a bit, get less.
Yeah, this doesn't also bring in and I know the numbers have declined over the past few years from where they were, certainly a decade ago. They were huge. This doesn't necessarily suitably equate to us into second bite of the cherry, i.e. withdrawn to other agent to potentially lower price, higher fee. We can't see the impact of second agent marketing in these figures.
What is particularly interesting, again, that only 6.9% of homes sell with the second agent. Yeah, them's is the stats.
And yet, 40-something% don't sell at all.
There you go. Not many withdrawals go to a second
agent. If only there was a website that told you which was the best agent.
There you go.
What a dream that would be. Who could invent something like that?
There you go. Right, let's just have a look. Who gets houses?
I'm hurting now. I need some rib cream. Yeah, go on.
So Martin & Co. take 51. Right, so the average agent takes 89 days to get a new instruction to sale agreed. However, Martin & Co. are doing it in 51 days. Bulgarum 79, Pearson 69, Charters 79, Goadsby's 115. On average,
yeah, I mean, if you actually factor the price bracket in there, down at the bottom, I think that data, it does take longer to sell the bigger stuff.
It does take longer to sell the posh houses, so I will give you that. And we can actually mess about with price ranges. We're not going to this one, but we can.
So just pick a couple of those down our list. Oh, we got it on the right, actually. So SSTC2 completed 220 days. Plus, say, if I add 121 and 220, what number do I get? 341. And a year has 365 days-ish. If someone said to me on my sofa, I can sell your house, I'm the best agent in town, and it will take 1 year, I don't know how I would feel about that, but my immediate instinct is bad. 1 year to sell a house.
Well,
the cost, if I've got a mortgage, right, and I'm selling for the cash, it would cost me 12 mortgage payments to sell my house.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, you can see the power of data. And the most important thing is turning that data into a message that's powerful enough on the vendor's sofa and in your marketing.
1 year to sell a house.
Yes. Let's move on to lettings. So
I don't know if I can move on. I feel stuck, Chris. Okay. 1 year to sell a house.
Okay, we've heard you. We've heard you. Get off your soapbox. We've got a bit more to go. So in 2021, the average rent was 1,628. The average rent in the last year or so has been 1,795.
Okay.
Winchester is a university city. and we can tell that because of this little peak here. Can you see there? So
Yeah.
we have the student population and they all come on at the same time. So that enables us to show you what the lettings market that is.
Yeah, so that's the year before, isn't it? They book at the end of the year before they start uni or come back to uni. Yeah, okay.
Okay. I used to be national sales manager for Belvoir, so therefore, what we do is new instructions has a direct relationship to what you have in stock of on your property portfolio. There's a different you times whatever the property you put on the market in a year by a certain figure, and that depends on whether it's a student town, city or not, or whether it's a city or a town. So we can work that out. I'm not going to go through that now. But let's just have a quick look and see who is shaking and who is moving when it comes to the rental market. And we start off with Martin and Co. And you've got to admit that that is truly exceptional. And I do know Julian Bessie. I've known him for over a decade. Our paths cross on a regular basis. That is truly exceptional to have 30% of the market and growing in a market where most agents are actually slipping. You could all learn a lot from his operation. Truly exceptional. Let's go look at charters. So again, drifting downwards. Diables. Again, a slight. Is that November? Yeah, or October? Yeah. So there's students in there, but again, drifting again. Open rent.
That's an interesting one, is it not? So we've seen this growth. And now these are very wide graph points. It's going to be interesting to see where that is in, say, 12 months' time. Because in so many of the times we talked about this, we are seeing a very steep growth trajectory for open rent. And it's the one that stands out as different. And we've talked about this before, where to choose open rent versus a local, be they independent or not, is a messaging stroke perception difference on the landlord's side. It's a very different thing to pick. It's interesting there that the figures look like they're all over the place for the past 12 months. It'd be interesting to see where they are in 12 months' time.
Well, again, because I like my stats, what we've got here, I mean, this is a national figure, but in the last 3 years, 51.2% of open rents properties were previously on the market with a high street agent. And I don't believe.
Sorry, in the same time frame or the tenancy before?
The tenancy before.
So 12 months prior, for example.
Well, no. So in terms of the last time the property came on the market for rent.
Yes. So you're not necessarily saying that agents have failed to let an open rent have picked up the work. You're saying that the transition by the landlord at the end of the last tenancy to choose open rent versus marketing with a local agent.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that is very, very interesting.
Okay. Everyone was running around headless a few years ago about purple bricks. Biggest problem the industry has is open rent. And the problem comes from you're not proving your worth.
Yeah, it's a value proposition.
Yeah. Julian's doing a good job. And bottom line is what do you do? We only ring up our landlords with problems. Are you sitting down with your landlords and doing, property portfolio management? Is this going to fit what you want? Are you, the renters' rights bill is an absolutely huge opportunity for letting agents. You don't see many letting agents talking about it, though, do you? They're running around like headless chickens. Bulgarums. Okay. Goat's biz. Okay. Let's go down here.
So what is interesting in what I've seen here is that actually the champion in these data points is consistency, not necessarily rapid growth.
It is. It's consistency with your marketing. It's consistency with your message. It's consistency of doing the basics really, really well. I mean, as I said, I've got a very close family member who's selling a house, and they got a WhatsApp video call after the viewing with viewing feedback, which sounds quite basic. It blew their mind.
And was it a real person or was it AI doing the video?
No, it was a real person. Just
Well,
hi,
that's
so and
great.
so. Hi, so and so. Just had so and so around the house. Thought it was this. Thought it was this. Blah 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 blah.
Love it.
I mean, and then an offer came in, and classic estate agent in the car said this, said this. I looked at this. I rang them up. I did this. I did this. Really basic stuff.
So were they a happy customer?
Happy customer, waving the flags. I think she's going to be inviting to Christmas dinner and everything. It's just remembering that we are here to serve, not the other way around. It's just amazing, amazing. I was going to go and look at the marketing of some. I'll tell you what. Let's go and have a quick look at some of the marketing of the agents. Whose do you want to go and have a look at?
You know the answer to that question, don't you, without me saying anything?
No.
You will open Balgorum's Facebook page within the next millisecond because that's the one you had in mind.
Well, let's have a look because I don't know if I can find it. Hold on. Do they do Facebook?
I don't know.
Oh, here we are.
I think
right,
we both appreciate the irony if they didn't, but anyway.
Right, let's have a look. Here we go. Share the screen. Dum dum dum. Let's go and have a look.
A lot of listings there, matey.
Looks like a poor man's right move, doesn't it? Oh, meet the team.
Yeah, so the sort of play button isn't particularly attractive there, is it? That's nice. That's nice. There you go. And you were probably right about the Roman thing. Okay.
I prefer to see Dan and Andrea here as opposed to.
You can do those better than that. I'm not a Facebook person really, but you can do better than that, can't you? You can have a nice little thumbnail or something.
Yeah, you can. What was the other one? Dibbles.
Maybe they should chat with you on that.
Dibbles Real Estate. Let's have a look.
Okay. So they've got the Glassdoor piece straight away there, haven't they?
Meet the team.
More Glassdoor.
Okay, listings.
Okay, cool.
Property trends. Hello.
Yeah.
Whoa, hold on. We're liking stuff like this.
Yeah. Referred link. Nice blog.
Okay,
consistent graphics, which suggests they're buying that in. Is that I don't know who looks like that. Is that Data Loft or something?
Don't know. Again, I wouldn't be. Don't put an email address in. Just give the stuff away. I mean, yeah, okay, it's pretty basic, but it's more than most. I'll give you that. What else have we got? Okay.
I would say I do like their brand. Beautiful colors, nice font. It's a nice brand.
Let me show you what you guys should be doing, okay? Let's go to Cavendish, okay? This is what I consider one of the best estate agents with their marketing, okay? So they get a lot involved with the people. Got to put your viewings in, okay? Get the people in there. Hold on. Let's just see what else we got. Just want to see something else.
Swipe to view works, doesn't it? I like that.
So they're talking about the UK property market here.
I've seen that sort of font before.
Okay. Look, there you go. I know they talk about the local property market as well. Let's just find that out. There we go. Look, pound per square foot, picture of the person. I think his name is David. There we go. He's walking up, giving it some local.
Just out of interest, do you know how many square feet you own? I don't.
No, but it makes you look like, you're at a party and someone finds out you're an agent. The first question they always ask you is, how's the market?
Yeah.
So I find it fascinating. The biggest issue, the three problems that estate agents have is A, being called out to the val, secondly, losing it on the sofa, and the third is getting it sold. But if you ain't got the property, the other two problems are not even problems that you have. And what I find fascinating...
Essentially, although you have evangelized, even in this session, that fighting for the stock at all costs, in particular to the vendor, is not the right thing to do. But then, in terms of those three challenges, they all begin with, did you get the instruction?
Yeah.
Or did you get phoned, I suppose? Did you get called out to it?
Yeah. So if you've got incumbent status, which, charters and Belgarums have, then you're probably naturally going to be called out to a lot anyway. But even if, charters are at 22%, let's say they lose a handful, they're still probably not being called out to 2/3 of the homes that are coming on the market. So
yes, you say that. What you never know, and again, we were talking about the figures that don't exist in the 20. You don't know how many valuations go in the bin, and
but even if they're putting on 20, if they're putting on 22% of the stock, even if they're called out to a third, losing a third of the listings, which again is pretty high, they're still 70% they're not being called out to. And the ultimate thing is this: how do you get called out to more valuations? And if you look at most of the social media of all the agents in Winchester, apart from Dibbles, and it's pretty basic by that, but at least it's better than, is if you've got to be seen as the authority of the Winchester property market. And that's what charters do. You've almost got to copy what charters used to do by creating content on the Winchester property market to make you the voice, the authority of that property market. And you either produce it yourself, or there's people out there. There's a couple of people out there in the UK that can do that for you. Create local market. It's what Savills been doing for 30 years. Create property market content that makes you appear to be the most knowledgeable agent in Winchester. If you do that, you'll be seen as the authority and not just another agent with lots of listings. Because I've had a look at most of your social media, ladies and gentlemen. All your social media is listing, listing, listing. Look what we sold, meet the team. Listing, listing, listing. Look what we sold, meet the team. No wonder people can't judge you. So they're just going to call out. They're just going to call out Belgarums and charters because they see all their for sale boards.
There you have it.
Final thoughts, Christian.
Not much to say, to be honest with you, Chris. We're seeing small numbers, but rising stock. We're seeing price reductions, and again, small numbers, but rising numbers of them in terms of percentage. And I think it's just looking at, are we getting a bit too much stock? Are there going to be more opportunities for buyers, therefore harder opportunities for vendors to cash in on price? Who knows? I think geopolitically, it's very, very interesting just right now, just this week. Will that impact the agency space this year? The speculation about an uplifting cost of borrowing. We've certainly got an uplifting cost of living, depending on how long fuel is expensive for, plus other things linked to petroleum. It's going to be an interesting couple of months, I think, in terms of those. If we look at those small numbers, where are those small numbers going in terms of properties to market, price reductions, listing price versus price achieved? Could be turbulent, could be business as usual. Didn't say anything there, did I?
The magic thing is, ladies and gentlemen, there's always going to be events that's around the world, both nationally and around the world, that will affect the property market, but there'll always be people that need to sell. And it doesn't really matter whether house prices go up, down, or anyway. Your job is to be called out to more valuations. If you are a Winchester estate agent and what I've said to you with regard to the data and being that local authority, then please do give me a call. My VA has sent you an email with my contact details. I'm available to help estate agents be called out to more valuations. I'm a property market economist, and I ghostwrite local property market content to make you the authority. But you don't need me to do that. You can actually write it yourself. Say again.
The one number that is always jumping out of these figures is that 47-48% number. They are controllable numbers. We can list at more accurate pricing. We can create more secured sales by getting committed solicitors, vendors, getting reservation agreements, or even modern method. It is interesting that you talk about number of instructions and price reductions, etc. But the biggest number to change is how many people who say they might sell actually do sell, because that's where the money is. 40 something percent, 47, 48, I can't remember what the number is. 48% of the work that gets done doesn't pay.
No.
If you're a plumber, that's not viable.
No. So you get called out to more houses, which means that you can turn away the ones that aren't motivated, which means you can work smarter, be paid on more. And again, if you're seen as the authority, you can charge higher fees as well. And if you've got the numbers with the 20EA stuff to back it up, then it's not only an opinion, it's fact. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, Christian, thank you for your input today. Thank you.
Lovely to see you, Chris.
And we'll see you next week for week 10 of the UK property market out next week.